why can't creators diversify? Why can't they diversify platforms? And I don't know why everyone keeps saying this because we have been telling creators for literally a decade, if not more, do not rely on one platform. Have an email list, have a website. If you're going to post on TikTok, also post on YouTube Shorts. Like get on the YouTube train. Like we've been telling, if you have a podcast, do a video. Like we've been
Right.
telling people to diversify. That's not a new argument or a new piece of advice. My whole point against why that is not relevant here is that TikTok was unlike anything we'd ever seen.
Right.
So the discovery algorithm does not exist. It has never existed in that level of new eyeballs on every single post, the ability to reach so many people so quickly, the virality aspect. Like, fight me on it. There's no other platform that has done that. You can barely grow on Meta. Like nobody's growing on Meta
No,
these days.
no.
You know, YouTube,
YouTube.
there's more opportunity with like, the funds like through the platform. Maybe I
Sure.
don't know much about it, but I mean, there's nothing like TikTok. So to take that away, if your pie is like this, I would gander that a big amount of that pie, if you have revenue coming in as a creator, is probably from TikTok these days.
Right.
That's a chunk of money that like should not just be forgotten.
Welcome to the Push Forward podcast. I'm your host, Alex. Today, I'm excited to have Katie Stoller back with us. She is now, I think, going to become our influencer marketing everything guest, because if you've been following Katie's work and everything that she talks about on LinkedIn about the world of influencer marketing, but specifically today we're going to get into the whole situation with TikTok and the ban that's coming and what that means for influencers, for brands, agencies, and everything in between. And I think we know where Katie and our audience of influencers stand on this. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Katie.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm glad to chat about this more because there's a lot to say.
Absolutely. And on such short notice. So I'm so glad to have you here. It's an important conversation because it affects millions of people who depend on making a living off of TikTok being a platform, right? I think of it like almost, if it were Microsoft or Google and they have their subcontractors who they hire to do work and then they pay them. And with TikTok, yes, it's a little bit different in that influencers, creators are mostly independent workers working on behalf of brands and agencies. But the ban, if it goes through, it's really going to affect us. So talk to us about what you think about it and what the influencers that you're talking to are thinking about.
Yeah, so I think the reason that this is causing so much like opinion and emotion is because it's so multifaceted. Like you're hearing all these sound bites, you're hearing people either for the ban or against the ban, but it is so deep. Like, and that's what I'm realizing. I did a LinkedIn post that was just like, let's think about the creators that are making their living off of this. And I thought that was so like middle of the road, not aggressive on either side. And the comments were like wild. Like people are so passionate about this.
I read them.
Yeah, and it's like I think it's because it comes down to like a couple things. Number one, it's very political. Like your political preference, your whatever you sort of like relate to. I know a lot of people these days aren't sort of one party, they're kind of all across the board. But your political views and values play into this because it's political. It's about another country and them overseeing something and having access to data and all that. But it's also just like the values that some of these older politicians don't fully understand how some of this works. Like their values don't align with what's happening in culture and Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Like they're just so out of touch in some senses. So there's a lot there politically. And then as we kind of touched on, there's a lot there in terms of relations with other countries that like none of us are qualified to even comment on. Like the whole security threat issue is something we should like obviously like care about. It's important, but like I can't speak to what China is doing with our information. And there is a little bit, like, I hate to even go there, but I'm going to go there. There is a little bit of like racial undertones to that too, just assuming that this country is doing nefarious things with our data. That bothers me. Like, there is no proof right now that China is doing horrible stuff with our information. Can it happen? Is it a threat? Potentially, yes. But I don't like just this assumption that we're just saying that this company is going to do horrible things with our data, because so far nothing has come out of that. I mean, I haven't seen anything. So that part I think it's also political, but it's also, there's like a racial kind of like skew there, which is difficult. And then on the more lighter side of it, it's just a tool that people actually love and use every single day. People are making money off of it. People are coming out of poverty from it. Um, Small businesses that would have never been profitable have grown to be household names. I mean, someone just posted recently on like this like cleaning product, the pink stuff that had $2 million in sales that now has like $200 million in sales because of TikTok shop. Like, it's changing lives. So it is so incredibly multifaceted, this whole discussion. And I think that's why there's so much conversation going on. It's not a should we ban it, should we not conversation. It's so deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I think about the safety stuff that you're talking about, it's legitimate, right? Election. But that's not just TikTok. That's Facebook, Google, and all the other ones who are allowing people on the extreme right and left to basically post, fake news, fake information. So that's not just for TikTok. That's for every platform. And we know with Section 230, we've talked about it on the podcast here before, the government and tech has done nothing about it. So let's like set that aside, because that can't be the issue. So let's go to the issue of children or kids. We both have kids, so we clearly care about our children's safety. That's up to the parents. The parents have to put the guardrails in place. So kids, I don't think it's as much of an issue, although we have to acknowledge the mental health issue
100%.
that is also happening on Instagram. I mean, there's lots there, so I'm not going to diminish that, but that's
100%.
also really up to the parents to put those guardrails. But the last thing I want to say, Katie, is that we as Americans here buy products from China every day. Not only products like our furniture that sometimes has too much formaldehyde, and the regulation doesn't really allow for consumers to know exactly what's going on, right? Unless you're in a state like California. But then go beyond that. What about what we put in our bodies? The amount of food and vitamins that come from China that American companies are manufacturing there with dirt cheap labor and then bringing it over here and selling it to Americans. And the government is like, you're good. You're good. All these, global companies that make products there that people are now eating, digesting is okay, but not TikTok. So to me, when I heard this whole argument, I thought there are things that are more important to our safety than TikTok. And certainly there should be guardrails. But since the government has proven to be ineffective with Section 230 and our own companies here, that this doesn't make sense.
100%. I feel like they're like my commentary about thinking that just immediately ripping the Band-Aid off in TikTok, poof, gone, just gone.
Mm-hmm.
That to me doesn't make sense, because yes, I have a 3-year-old and my 5-year-old is on an iPad. Like, these are things that I think about all the time.
Sure.
No, I do not want my kid to be tied to, we have friends that like their kids are obsessed with YouTube. My child doesn't even know what YouTube is. Like, I'm very cautious about it. I work in social media, but to ban a platform that adults are using legitimately, because like that argument doesn't make sense. And to your point, like, there's a million other platforms that they could be using. I don't think that we should let a Chinese company that is wildly being used here just run free. Like, there should be regulations, there should be legislation. I know this is like more idealistic and it's more complicated than this, but yes, it should not just be like free to run and take off and like not have any sort of guardrails. I understand that, but to just eliminate something overnight, like, we don't know when this could happen. This could literally just be it's got poop, it's off our phones. Mm-hmm. And that to me is reckless. And as my point said, it's careless, it's ignorant, it's just not taking a full scope. And to your point, there are a lot of other threats to our society, in my opinion, that are more imminent. Like, someone on my post was saying, like, should we allow tobacco to run free, or should we allow people not to wear seatbelts? And I'm like, what is TikTok imminently doing, imminently right now, that is a very huge threat to our society, that requires it to be gone. Like, whereas cigarettes, like, we knew it was a carcinogen and it was like actually killing people. That was my whole point. I just don't think that we as a society should be okay with them just removing it and having it be gone. When you made excellent points about all the other things that maybe should sort of be more imminent.
And I think it's interesting too that some of the competitors, the largest competitors, it's, as you said, it's multifaceted, and there are winners and losers in this. But when I think of the competitors like Google and their platforms, Facebook and their Meta and their platforms, how they want to just kind of sit in the sidelines and not really say anything because their lobbyists have been trying to get them out of harm's way with Section 230 and all the regulation that's happening there. Here in Florida, as you know, there are bans going in place right now for age 16 and under. They're not going to work. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard of because the state's actually not putting guardrails in place. So even at the state level with companies that are here in the US, they're not able to fix this issue, so to speak. So as you said, just pulling off the Band-Aid, the big stakeholder other than the competitors are the brands and the agencies. Where do you see them fall into this argument? Because clearly they have other channels they can go to, right?
Yeah.
And pick off that sort of drop off.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason my first instinct, so my husband's a lawyer, he's very like tuned into politics. And he was the one that was like, what are you going to do when TikTok goes away? Like, he was the one that even got it going in my head. It was like the morning the news came out. And that's kind of why I jumped on it, because I was like, I have a lot to say on this. But my head, as a brand person, I'm a tried and true brand person. I've worked for many big top agencies with really big, Fortune 100 brands. And I didn't even think about that. Like, that wasn't even my priority because I've worked with so many influencers that are benefiting. I do truly think, and maybe I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, but I don't think there's that much of an impact. Like, we worked many years without TikTok. We could probably work fine without. We'll allocate budgets. We'll do a lot more paid. Imminently right now, it's an issue because I have, like, I don't know, 45 contracts right now waiting on TikTok assets to come in. So, like, that would suck for me because I'd have to renegotiate a bunch of contracts. I mean, it's going to cost money to recontract a bunch of people on the platform. Just poof, goes away. We've got paid ads running right now on TikTok. So that would be annoying, but I don't think the implication I think they would just sort of filter to other platforms. But on the flip side of that, one of the biggest arguments I got is, why can't creators diversify? Why can't they diversify platforms? And I don't know why everyone keeps saying this, because we have been telling creators for literally a decade, if not more, do not rely on one platform. Have an email list, have a website. If you're going to post on TikTok, also post on YouTube Shorts. Like, get on the YouTube train. Like, we've been telling, if you have a podcast, do a video. Like, we've been telling people to diversify. That's not a new argument or a new piece of advice. My whole point against why that is not relevant here is that TikTok was unlike anything we'd ever seen.
Right.
So the discovery algorithm does not exist. It has never existed in that level of new eyeballs on every single post, the ability to reach so many people so quickly, the virality aspect. Like, fight me on it. There's no other platform that has done that. You can barely grow on Meta. Like, nobody's growing on Meta.
No.
YouTube. There's more opportunity with, like, the funds, like, through the platform. Maybe sure. I don't know much about it, but I mean, there's nothing like TikTok. So to take that away, if your pie is like this, I would gander that a big amount of that pie, if you have revenue coming in as a creator, is probably from TikTok these days. That's a chunk of money that, like, should not just be forgotten. Like, the argument of, well, we'll just go on Instagram, like, it's sort of like a red herring argument. Like, it doesn't matter that they can also go on other platforms. So that was really frustrating, because I'm like, people were like, not even in the creator economy, being like, I have an idea. Why don't they go on another platform? And I'm like, this is not new. And that does not negate the fact that they're going to lose money when TikTok
right. Well, to a certain extent, it's like really on the government side, anti-capitalist to do anything like this. And on the other end, where people say just diversify, I know having been in the digital space for more than 15 years, even with large brands, I can go to a channel with a huge budget and still just do eh. And then you go,
Yeah.
wow. And then go to another channel and do really well with multiple strategies where you're following the algorithms, you're partnering with the right, you know, influencers and whatnot. So it's not as easy to just say, I'm just going to capture emails and bring people to my website. It doesn't really
Read
work.
blogs. I mean, like you should have a website. I have a website. I probably have
Sure.
like
Yeah.
on a month. Like I think it's important to have that like business card, that stamp, especially as a brand. If I look at a creator and I like want to learn more about them, I might go and like see if they have a website, and it's always helpful. But like no one's like the amount of people act like sitting actively looking at TikTok versus like scrolling through blogs. I mean, come on, like that's not an
No, it's
argument,
not.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. You know, I've talked to a lot of agencies, brands, influencers, and especially the influencers, like you said, you know, it's the small guy or girl who's going to really suffer from this. The brands, agencies, they'll find their way through it. As you said, there's going to be millions of dollars lost in time that we've all put into these platforms. I actually have a client that does lead gen, so direct and B2B, where it's not really huge on TikTok, but they do B2B lead generation, and they depend on hundreds of leads every month for their intake team to work, and it's grown their business. So and the conversation there is like, where else are you going to get that audience? Well, you're not going to just increase your spend elsewhere and then find those same leads because
Right.
these have been working for you. So I feel like it's going to be not as easy as the government thinks it's going to be. And then ultimately it it's not going to solve the China US
Right.
problem. We're still importing stuff all day every day. So
100%. And like my kids have the like Hatch, I have like the Amazon version of like the Hatch little like night light things. I have the
uh
camera like that this is not going to eliminate the fact that like Chinese companies where we buy all of our Amazon and Temu crap from,
right.
they're all over our houses. I mean, this is not eliminating a problem. The only other thing I want to just like quickly also say, and not to make this even more like political, but like it's important to me as a mom and a woman. TikTok has changed the lives of a lot of like stay-at-home moms. Like, we went through this whole like kind of trend of like MLMs. I know they still exist, but like very like toxic, terrible, suck you in like marketing companies that were horrible for women. And TikTok, I feel like is sort of the antithesis of that. Like, yes, there's like schemes and get rich quick and here's how to make $10,000 a day. And like, there's a lot of crap you have to sort of like sift through. But I know firsthand, I know women that have changed their lives and they couldn't have done it any other way. They don't have formal schooling. They, don't have the access. And TikTok has allowed like this new kind of wave of like entrepreneurial women that did not have a platform before this, in my opinion. And that's another part that really, really bothers me because it goes back to this whole like government making decisions for people. And I just feel like taking away people's ability to like take care of their kids and take care of their families, it just irks me. I know there's a lot more to it and it's very complicated, but that's really like where like the ethos of me getting fired up about this came from because I just can't imagine. Like it's probably not going to affect me very much, to be honest. I work for big, huge agencies with big, huge budgets and my life will go on. But it bothers me that these women and men that I've been hiring for 15 years of my career and now are like making some of them are making millions and millions of dollars. It's amazing. They built these businesses. It could potentially be like a plug and just get unplugged. And that does not sit well. So
I agree. And I think the hypocrisy too in the government side, a lot of these people who are for the ban have accounts on TikTok. And specifically, I don't even know the timing of the bill too, when not but like 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Biden administration put him up on TikTok. It was like, wait a minute. you guys are all going to talk about this ban, and then you're going to go on TikTok because you have a huge younger captive audience that you wish would vote for your party. And by the way, both parties are for it. I mean, if you look at Biden on one
Right.
side and then Trump on the other side said, well, actually, no, then yes, then no. And it's like they can't figure it out. And I think it goes back to your original point. No offense to elderly people, but they just don't understand these
I think
platforms.
that there's an older demographic that still thinks people are like dancing on it. Like they don't even that, like the magnitude of TikTok Shop, and there's many issues with TikTok Shop. I know there's like tons of like fraud, and
Yes.
again, this is not a perfect platform. Meta, Facebook is not perfect. Like Facebook is a dumpster fire too. I mean, none of
Oh,
these platforms are perfect, but just because it's not perfect doesn't mean we need to like completely remove it from society. And on the political side too, I think one other thing we didn't talk, you and I have not touched on so far, is this whole idea too of like these platforms have allowed, try not to get political here on either side because I truly like don't even know what side I'm on right now because it's such a cluster in my head.
neither side.
I'm really truly like in a land by myself, but like the ability to share knowledge basically. And I think it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, it protects these 25 people at the top, to not have us all be sharing videos of school shootings and sharing videos of things that are going on, up in Europe and in other countries. Like it helps them to keep the message tight. As a PR person, I understand it's a crisis comms measure to not have a bunch of people, millions and millions and billions of people sharing videos of everything that's going on. So that's kind of where I think everyone's agreeing at the top. Let's get rid of as many, opportunities for this to happen. It's not going to go away. Like we all know how to share video at this point. We don't need a platform to do it, but it's kind. I mean, it's kind of like dystopian when you think about it. Like they're in a way they're sort of like like this is maybe the first step in more silencing, which again does not sit well. So
It's not good. It's not good for business. Definitely not. All right. So what should our listeners be looking for in terms of like the next steps? Follow you on LinkedIn. Are there any decisions that you know of that are coming down the pipeline or
I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I know it has to still go through the Senate, and I haven't heard that it's been, called up yet. Like I have no idea.
yeah,
Someone did say that this is the type of thing where like we won't know. Like it's kind of like it'll be passed on to whoever makes the decision for votes, and it'll go. Like it'll be one of those like we wake up and there's news, which also is kind of frightening. But I would say if you're a creator, not to go against everything I just said with diversifying, but it is important to like, I watch like certain people's lives sometimes at night before I go to bed. And people have been saying like, if you are on this live and you like me, like this could go away, follow me on YouTube. So I do think it's
right,
important to like, let your audience that is loyal know where else they can find you and encourage. A lot of people don't even know this is going on. So if you're not in marketing or you're not a creator, you might be informing them that this is that this could go away. So definitely be doing that. I mean, I think it's important. It's not like a huge extra lift to get people
right.
on this platform. Um, but this is something we all should care about. I mean, as we said, this is more complicated than just a silly platform going away. So everyone should be engaged. I always say like politics takes participation. Like we can't just sit by and allow things that we don't agree with to happen. So, look into your state's rules with stuff. Stay tuned in, follow
Yeah.
people on LinkedIn. We're all talking about it. And, I don't know. I feel so bad for people that are like, that this is a potential like huge threat to happening. I just wish everyone the best.
Yeah, no,
We're in this
definitely. Well,
together.
well, I think the different angles that you and experience that you've had in the industry, like you said, from the brands to the agencies and influencers, brings just a lot of clarity for people who, as you said, may not understand what's actually really happening. And, maybe some of our politicians should be talking to people like you who really understand the impact of what this ban would bring, right?
Yeah.
It's just not a few people, or it's not just the Chinese or anything like that. So
Just
we'll
the
keep following
teenagers
you.
dancing. Like I truly think that they sit in the room and think that that's what TikTok is like.
Yeah, I agree. But we're going to keep bringing you back and following your content, Katie. We'll put your information in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.